If you have knee pain, you've probably had this moment. You finally decide to do the right thing. You tell yourself, I'm going to start walking again. Not running, not jumping, just walking. You lace up your shoes, you go slow, you're careful, you're responsible, and for a few minutes it even feels okay. Then later that day, or worse, the next morning, you step out of bed and your knee hits you with that familiar message, a deeper ache, more stiffness, that sharper pinch on stairs, that feeling like the joint is thicker than it should be. And instantly, your brain does what every human brain does. It panics. You don't think, maybe I need to adjust the dose. You think, walking is damaging my knee. I knew it. I'm making it worse. I should stop before I can't walk at all. And that fear is not silly. Because when a knee hurts, it doesn't just hurt in the joint. It hurts in your confidence. It makes you feel older than you are. It makes you feel trapped inside your own body. It makes simple decisions feel risky. Even a short walk can start to feel like a gamble. Now here's the part that shocks most people. For most long-term knee pain, especially the kind that comes with stiffness, arthritis changes, or wear and tear symptoms, movement is not the enemy. In fact, controlled movement is one of the most recommended tools for improving pain and function over time. So if walking is supposed to help, why does it sometimes make you feel worse? This is where almost everyone gets it wrong. They assume the problem is walking, but most of the time the problem is the way the walking was introduced, because the knee is not a light switch, it's a system. It responds to load like a thermometer responds to heat. Too little load for too long and it gets stiff and sensitive. Too much load too suddenly and it flares. And that flare feels like damage, even when it's often just overload. Let me paint a picture you'll recognize. You've had knee pain, so you've been moving less. Maybe not by choice, just naturally. Less walking, more sitting, more careful steps, more avoiding stairs, hills, long trips, uneven ground. Then one day, you feel motivated. You take a good walk, you go longer than your knee has been used to. You walk a little faster than normal because you want it to count. You choose a route with a slight hill, or you go on hard concrete, or your shoes are worn down a bit and you don't notice. And you finish the walk thinking, see? I can still do it. But your knee wasn't trained for that dose anymore. So the joint complains, not because you're weak, not because your knee is finished, because the knee is reacting to a sudden change in workload. Here's the twist that keeps people stuck. When the knee flares, most people stop completely. They rest for a week, they sit more. They wait for it to calm down, then they try again and flare again. So the brain learns a dangerous lesson. Walking equals pain. And slowly, your world shrinks. Fewer walks, less confidence, more stiffness, more fear, and the knee gets even less tolerant. That's the cycle. And the way out is not pushing harder. The way out is understanding one rule that changes everything. Your knee doesn't need zero load. It needs the right dose of load. That means you're not asking, should I walk or not walk? You're asking a smarter question. How do I walk in a way my knee can accept? Because once you get the dose right, pace, stride, surface, time, the knee often stops reacting like it's under attack. And when that happens, something else returns, your confidence. So in the next chapter, I'm going to show you why older knees flare so easily at the start, and how to tell the difference between good soreness and too much. Then I'll give you the simplest knee-safe walking method, so you can build tolerance without triggering that next day punishment. And if you've ever felt like walking is the thing that's stealing your mobility, stay with me, because the fix is not quitting walking. It's finally learning how to walk in a way that protects your knee while rebuilding it. Let's clear the biggest misunderstanding, because this misunderstanding is the reason so many older adults stop walking. If your knee hurts during or after a walk, it feels logical to assume one thing. I'm wearing the knee out. But knee pain does not automatically mean you're damaging your knee. In knee osteoarthritis especially, pain and joint wear don't always match the way people expect. Research shows there can be a real disconnect between what an X-ray shows and how much pain a person feels. That's why two people can have the same level of arthritis on imaging. And one has severe pain while the other has almost none. So if pain isn't a perfect damage meter, what is it? For many older adults, knee pain is often a sign of sensitivity and overload, not instant destruction. And here's the part that explains why walking can feel like it backfires in the beginning. Most people don't restart walking with a gentle dose. They restart with a hope. They think, if I can just do a proper walk, I'll get stronger again. So they do more than the knee has been prepared for. And your knee responds like a system that has lost tolerance. Think of it like skin that hasn't seen sun in months. If you suddenly spend a long time outside, you burn. Not because sunlight is evil, because the dose was wrong. The knee is similar. When you've been less active, because of pain, age, fear, or just life, the support system around the knee changes. The muscles that stabilize the joint get weaker. The tendons and joint lining get more reactive. The joint feels stiffer after sitting. So one good walk can become too much. And when that happens, you get what many people call a flare. A flare is when symptoms spike. More pain, more stiffness, more sensitivity, sometimes for a day or several days. And flare-ups are a known part of knee osteoarthritis and chronic knee pain patterns. Now notice what happens next. A flare doesn't just affect the knee, it affects your brain. Because after a flare, you don't just feel pain. You feel betrayed. You feel like the knee proved your worst fear. That was too much. I shouldn't have tried. I'm going to end up worse. So you stop moving, you rest, you sit more, you protect the knee. And short term, that feels safer. But long term, it often makes the knee even less tolerant because the protective muscles weaken further. Stiffness increases, and the joint becomes even more sensitive to the next attempt. That creates the trap. You walk to it, flares too. You stop till you lose tolerance, till you try again, till it flares faster. And the worst part is, people blame themselves. They think they failed, but the real problem wasn't effort. It was dosing. This is why major clinical guidelines consistently recommend exercise as a core treatment for knee osteoarthritis, including walking and strengthening, because the goal is to rebuild tolerance and function, not avoid movement forever. So we're not going to ask, should you walk or not? We're going to ask a smarter question. How do you walk in a way that your knee can accept today without triggering tomorrow's flare? Because once you fix that, walking stops feeling like a gamble. And in the next chapter, I'll show you the 3 most common walking mistakes that overload older knees, so you can spot them instantly and avoid the flare cycle before it starts. Most knee flare-ups from walking don't happen because walking is bad. They happen because the knee gets overloaded in very predictable ways, usually the same 3 patterns over and over. And the frustrating part is, these mistakes feel innocent. They don't feel like mistakes while you're doing them. They feel like you're being responsible. So let's name them clearly. Because once you can spot them, you can stop the flare before it starts. Mistake number 1 is what I call the walk it off pace. This is the moment you think, if I'm going to walk, I should make it count. So you walk faster, you push your speed a little, you add urgency, you make it a workout. But for an older knee that's sensitive, that faster pace can change the load on the joint. Not because speed is evil, because speed increases repeated stress with every step. If your knee is already reactive, it may tolerate steady, moderate walking far better than aggressive speed, especially early on. Here's the key. The goal is not to prove fitness. The goal is to build tolerance without triggering inflammation. So if your knee tends to flare, speed is not the first lever you touch. Time and consistency are. Mistake number 2 is the one almost nobody notices until you point it out. Overstriding. That's when your foot lands too far in front of your body. It feels like a strong stride, like you're walking confidently. But it creates a braking force. Your body has to slow itself down on each step. And that braking force often loads the knee more, especially the front of the knee or the inside compartment, depending on your mechanics. You'll notice it most on downhills. Downhill walking turns overstriding into repeated knee braking. That's why people say, flat walking is okay, but hills destroy me. It's not always the hill. It's the braking, and the simplest fix is not complicated. Shorten your step slightly. Let your foot land closer under your hips, not far out in front. If you want a simple cue, it's this. Make your footsteps quieter. Overstriding often sounds heavier. Shorter steps often sound softer. Mistake number 3 is the surface plus shoe combo. This one sneaks up on people because it doesn't feel like a walking mistake. You're just walking where you can. hard concrete, uneven sidewalks, slanted roads, gravel, or you're wearing shoes that are worn down, unstable, or too soft in the wrong places. And small changes at the foot can travel upward. If the foot collapses inward more, the knee can rotate and load differently. If the surface is tilted, one knee takes a slightly different angle on every step. If the shoe is unstable, your muscles work harder just to control the leg. Fatigue hits faster and control drops. That's when the knee gets irritated. Now here's why all of this matters. Exercise therapy has strong evidence for improving pain and function in knee osteoarthritis overall. That means the long-term. Now we build the knee-safe walk. Not a fitness walk, not a push-through-it walk. A walk your knee can accept today and still accept tomorrow. Because the goal is not to win one walk. The goal is to create a pattern your knee stops fighting. So here's the technique. Simple, specific, repeatable. And I want you to treat this like a recipe. Not motivation, not willpower, just the right ingredients. First, the pace rule. This is the biggest mistake people make. They think walking has to feel like exercise to be useful. But if your knee flares easily, your safest starting pace is the one where you can talk in full sentences comfortably, not gasping, not pushing. If you can speak clearly, your nervous system stays calmer, your muscles stay smoother, and your steps stay controlled. And control is what protects the knee. Second, the stride rule, shorter and quieter. Most knee irritation doesn't come from walking itself. It comes from the tiny, braking moment in every step. When you overstride, your foot lands too far forward, and your knee absorbs a stronger stopping force. So instead, shorten your step slightly. Let your foot land closer under your hips. And use this cue. Make your footsteps quieter. Quieter steps usually mean less impact, less braking, less harsh loading. If you hear heavy slapping, you're likely landing hard. If you hear softer contact, you're usually loading the knee more gently. Third, the posture rule. Tall chest, soft knees. This is where older adults get tricked. When the knee hurts, you naturally stiffen, you lock the joint, you brace, you walk like you're protecting something fragile. But locked knees create jarring. They reduce shock absorption. So instead, stand tall through the chest, keep your gaze forward, and keep the knee soft. Not bent deeply, just not locked. Think of it like suspension in a car. A little softness absorbs the road. Rigidity transfers everything into the joint. Fourth, the root rule. Flat first. If your knee is sensitive right now, earn hills later. Flat ground is your training ground. It allows you to practice smooth steps without extra braking forces. If you must do a slope, avoid long downhills early on. Downhill is where overstriding and braking show up, even in careful people. If you feel pain going downhill, shorten steps even more. Slow down and keep your foot closer under you. Now the most important rule, the rule that saves knees. The pain rule, the 24-hour rule. During the walk, mild discomfort can be okay. A little stiffness, a mild ache. But what matters is what happens later. If your knee is noticeably worse later that day, or worse the next morning, more swollen, more stiff, sharper on stairs, that was too much dose for your knee right now. And this is where most people make the wrong move. They think a flare means stop forever. No, a flare means adjust dose. So you do one of these. Shorten the walk by a few minutes. Slow the pace slightly. Choose a flatter, smoother surface, or split one walk into two shorter walks. Because the goal is not to avoid load. The goal is to find the load your knee can recover from. And once you find that, something powerful happens. Your knee stops punishing you the next day. And when the next day is calmer, you start trusting your body again. So here's your checkpoint before we move on. If you can walk at a talking pace with shorter, quieter steps on a flat road, and your next morning is not worse, that's your safe zone. And in the next chapter, I'll give you the exact 7-day plan to build from that safe zone without triggering the day 2 flare. Plus one surprising option if forward walking still irritates your knee. Here's what most people don't realize about knee pain and walking. Your knee doesn't improve because you did one perfect walk. It improves because you found a dose you can repeat without paying for it the next day. That's why I'm giving you a 7-day plan that's built for older adults who flare easily. Not a challenge, not a push through it routine. A plan that rebuilds tolerance quietly, so your knee stops reacting like every walk is an emergency. And we're going to use one rule the entire week, the 24-hour response. You can feel a little stiffness during the walk. You can feel mild discomfort. But your real answer comes later. If your knee is clearly worse, later that day or the next morning, more stiff, more swollen, sharper on stairs, then yesterday's dose was too much. That doesn't mean stop walking. It means step back one level and let the knee catch up. Now here's the plan. Day 1, 6 minutes, flat route, comfortable talking pace. Your only goal is to finish and feel, I could do that again. Day 2, 6 to 8 minutes, same rules. If you feel tempted to go longer, don't. This is where people flare themselves. Day 3, 8 to 10 minutes, still flat, still calm pace, still shorter, quieter steps. Day 4, repeat. Day 3, this is the stability day. Older knees often need a repeat day to adapt. If you're sore, don't increase. If you're fine, still don't rush. Let the knee bank the win. Day 5, 10 to 12 minutes, same pace, same stride. No new hills yet. Day 6, light day, 8 to 10 minutes. This day is important because it reduces flare risk. It teaches your knee. We're consistent, not aggressive. Day 7, 12 to 15 minutes only if your 24-hour response stayed stable all week. If not, you repeat the best day again. That's not failure. That's smart dosing. Now here are the 2 rules that keep this plan safe. Rule 1, increase by minutes, not intensity. Don't chase speed. Don't chase sweat. Minutes first. Rule 2, if you flare, don't quit. Step back one level for 3 walks. So if day 5 flared you, go back to day 3, dosing for 3 walks. Then try again, because your knee is not judging you. It's adapting. And now, here's the secret option that surprises people, especially if forward walking irritates the front of the knee. Backward walking. Yes, backward. It sounds strange, but there's real rehabilitation research in knee osteoarthritis, showing that a structured retro walking program can improve pain, function, and quadriceps strength, sometimes outperforming forward walking in certain outcomes. But you must treat it like a rehab drill, not a stunt. If you try it, do it like this. A flat hallway. One hand near a wall or railing. Slow pace, short steps. Eyes forward, not twisting the neck. Start with 30 to 60 seconds, then return to forward walking. And if that feels unsafe, skip it. Forward walking done correctly is already powerful. Now here's the honest truth. Walking is a foundation, but for many older knees, walking alone isn't enough. If your knee keeps flaring, even with the right dose, you need one support lever. Something that reduces joint load and stabilizes the knee so walking stops hurting. In the next chapter, I'll show you that lever. 2 simple supports that can change the entire walking experience without pushing harder. If you've followed everything so far, you slowed down, shortened your stride, chose flat ground, controlled the dose, and your knee still gets irritated. I want you to hear this clearly. That doesn't mean walking isn't for you. It usually means your knee needs support, not more effort, because walking is a load. A healthy load, yes, when the knee can handle it. But if the muscles around your knee aren't protecting the joint yet, the knee takes too much of the stress directly. And that's when even a careful walk can feel like it's poking the painful spot. So here are the 2 evidence-backed support levers that often change everything, especially for older adults. Support lever number 1 is simple. Strengthen what protects the knee. Most people think knee pain is only a knee problem, but a knee is controlled by the muscles above and around it, especially the quadriceps in the front of the thigh and the hip muscles that control alignment. If the quads are weak, the knee joint has to absorb more load with less protection. If the hips are weak, the knee can drift into positions that overload the inside or front of the joint. That's why major clinical guidelines consistently recommend exercise therapy, especially strengthening, as a core treatment for knee osteoarthritis and chronic knee pain. Now, I'm not going to give you a complex gym program. I'm going to give you the smallest dose that actually works, because we're building confidence first. Do this 2 to 3 days per week. And keep it so easy that you finish thinking, I could do this again. Exercise number 1. Sit to stand from a chair. Sit on a stable chair. Feet flat, lean slightly forward, stand up smoothly. Sit back down slowly. Start with 5 to 8 repetitions. That's it. What this does is train the quads in the exact movement you need for stairs, walking, and getting out of a chair without shocking the knee. Exercise number 2. Choose one, depending on what your knee tolerates. Option A, wall-supported mini squat in a pain-free range. You're back against a wall. Slide down slightly, just a few inches, then back up. Option B, step up on a low step, slow and controlled. Pain-free range only. And here's the rule that keeps this safe. You're not chasing burn, you're chasing control. Control is what stabilizes the joint. Now support lever number 2, bracing when it's appropriate. A brace doesn't fix your knee permanently, but it can reduce irritating joint stress and improve confidence while you build strength and tolerance. Guidelines discuss knee bracing as helpful in certain cases, stronger recommendations for tibiofemoral bracing, and conditional recommendations for patellofemoral bracing. And confidence matters more than people realize, because when you're afraid of pain, you walk differently. You stiffen, you brace, you take awkward steps. That awkwardness can increase stress on the knee. So sometimes the brace helps, not only because of support, but because it helps you move more naturally again. Now here's the promise I want to leave you with. You don't need to push through pain, and you don't need to stop moving. You need 4 things working together: the right pace, the right stride, the right dose, and the right support. If you get those 4 right, walking stops feeling like a gamble. It becomes predictable. And when walking becomes predictable, your life opens back up. So here's your next step. Pick one walking dose you can do without a next-day punishment, and add the 2-day strength support. Give it 2 weeks. Not to cure the knee overnight, but to prove to your nervous system that progress is possible without suffering. And if this helped, comment one line for me. Knee safe walk. Then tell me what triggers your pain most: stairs, hills, or flat walking. So the next video is built around your exact problem.